I got married, married for 6 years, and I've got a boy. And at the time of the separation, my son was 4 years old. We got married, and after a few months of getting married, my wife had depression, and she wasn't very well. And the marriage was very hard work, and it wasn't particularly great, but I sort of believed that, once you're married, then you stay married, and I didn't believe in divorce. And 3 times my ex-wife wanted to leave me. Twice I sort of tried to save it, but the third time with counselling, she sort of just said she didn't want to be married to me anymore. She didn't love me, so we split up. I felt a huge pain. I thought the whole thing was a nightmare and I'd wake up from it. Absolutely gutted, distraught. I just couldn't cope for a bit. I was in total denial and shock, and I was very angry as well, actually. A lot of people were sort of saying, well, don't worry, everything will be fine, giving wrong advice. The whole thing was extremely painful, and I could go only one day at a time. I didn't sleep. I tried to box it. I tried to put the whole thing to one side and effectively live in denial for a long time, for about 6 months. I didn't eat. I had a son I was trying to look after as well. I was working, I was trying to juggle things, and I was trying to work out what the best thing would be for him, as I felt that it was nothing to do with him and I wanted to be involved in his life. So it was very hard to see a way forward, with pressure coming from everywhere, from friends, from family, and from the ex's family, and from her. When you're a father to a child, you have this bond that is different. I think if I hadn't had children, I could have probably walked away a lot easier. But having a son who was only 4 at the time, I felt immense duty and love as a father to be involved in his life, and I wanted to be involved. And at the time, with the emotions running high, the ex was keen for me not to have so much involvement as I do now. And it was very hard to to sail through that course of trying to work out the best scenario for him as well as for us. The things that helped me cope best to get through this were, I had 2 or 3 very, very good friends who were absolutely brilliant, would text me or ring me every day to make sure I was okay, totally unjudgmental, didn't mention anything. And also I came to church, where I felt it was the only place I could really actually let my true feelings down and take my guard down and cry and talk to people without being judged. I was talking to my sister, and she suggested I come on the sort of divorce recovery course, and I went along. I did it twice in succession. The first time I did it, I didn't really take an awful lot in, but it was very comforting to come across other people you could talk to and just literally offload, because you do find that a lot of your friends just get fed up with it and want to just say, look, I've had enough. But you could talk to these people, and it's nice to know you weren't alone. I found it extremely helpful, and a number of things they said on it actually you could put into practice to deal with various problems. You also have a number of people who have been through similar situations where you can actually have a really good sort of network of people that you can not bore. The biggest things that helped me, I think, were taking at the time, every day at a time, going to church and getting into a routine, and realising that although life was really bad and one could wallow in self-pity, which obviously one did for a bit to milk it, but there is light at the end of the tunnel and there's hope, and life will get better, although you hate it when people tell you that. I found forgiveness one of the biggest issues to deal with, and in honesty I still struggle with it. I think we all do, but it is something that until you start to forgive, it's very hard to move forward. If you don't forgive, you end up having hate, and that'll eat you away. So although it's hard, forgiveness is the best way to actually help heal yourself. Being a father now, we have sort of effectively shared responsibility. I see my son on a very regular basis. We have a great relationship, which I'm very pleased with. In a way, if we hadn't got divorced, I wonder what sort of relationship we would have, whether it would be this close. Although one can't compare, one just has to be, you have to accept what you've got. You don't know what it would be like if we were still married. But we have a very good relationship together, and with the ex we're beginning to communicate in a good way. After 4.5 years, we are through the end of the tunnel, and both working for our son. The communication I found very difficult from day one. I was being shouted and screamed at, sworn at, and whatever I did would be wrong, and there'd be no sort of logic to it. It has been like that through the divorce, but a number of other tragedies hit as well. My father died 3 months after the separation, and my ex's, both her parents have just died. So within 3.5 years, 3 grandparents died. It has made one realise, and I think certainly for both of us, that life is short and we have to try and forgive and to work together for our son's sake. The communication is getting better, and it takes time, and our son seeing that there's a better... The thing I always say to my son is try and copy the best things from both of us, not the worst. I feel now immense relief, actually. I know I shouldn't say it, but I do feel immense relief. Life is tough, certainly still being involved with my son, but I wouldn't change that. It's nice to have freedom and not to feel I have to report, or I have to ring someone for the sake of it just to report in. I have freedom, which is wonderful, and life is getting better, and I'm sure it'll get even better. If you're going through the same sort of thing, there is no easy way to get through it. It is one stage at a time. It's one day at a time, 1 minute at a time even. You can't lose the sight of hope, no matter how desperate. I found church immensely helpful in allowing me to have a freedom to allow my emotions to, in a safe place, to come out, as opposed to putting on a front, which is terribly easy to do. I would suggest having 1 or 2 very good people, wise friends, who aren't going to be judgmental or give you advice. It's terribly easy to listen to wrong advice, and that can have huge consequences. And take your time in what decisions you make. Don't be hurried, certainly if you have children, because it will affect. If you make a bad decision at the wrong time, you may live to regret it. And the most important thing is to actually not to regret the decisions you've made.